Have you ever stopped to think about how quickly life can change in a place that seems so far away from your own? The Cambodia-Thailand border, a region that many of us might only know from maps or news headlines, has suddenly become the epicenter of a crisis that's unfolding at a breathtaking pace. It's easy to imagine borders as just lines on a map, but for the people living here, those lines have become the front lines of chaos, fear, and uncertainty. I have to admit, I never realized just how rapidly things could spiral out of control in this part of the world, until now. In a matter of just 3 days, the lives of thousands of ordinary people have been completely upended. Imagine waking up to the sound of distant explosions, the ground trembling beneath your feet, and the urgent shouts of neighbors telling you to pack what you can and leave immediately. For so many families, there was no time to think, only time to act. Parents grabbed their children, elders clung to precious keepsakes, and entire villages emptied out almost overnight. The sense of panic and confusion is impossible to overstate. What was once a peaceful rural community has been transformed into a scene of mass exodus, with people fleeing in every direction, desperate to escape the violence that has erupted all around them. So what's really happening here? For the third consecutive day, the Cambodia-Thailand border has been rocked by deadly clashes that show no sign of stopping. The sound of gunfire and explosions echoes across the countryside as soldiers from both sides engage in fierce combat. The fighting is intense, with both armies using heavy weapons and showing little regard for the civilians caught in the crossfire. The border, once a place of trade and travel, has become a war zone. The air is thick with smoke, and the ground is littered with debris from the ongoing battles. It's a situation that's growing more dangerous by the hour, and the fear among local residents is palpable. The scale of the humanitarian crisis is staggering. Artillery shells, rocket fire, and even airstrikes have forced more than 168,000 people to abandon their homes in search of safety. Most of those fleeing are women, children, and the elderly, those least able to protect themselves from the violence. Picture families trudging along dusty roads carrying whatever they could salvage, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. Some have walked for miles, unsure of where they'll find shelter or when they'll be able to return home. The stories emerging from the border are heartbreaking. Children separated from parents in the chaos, elderly villagers struggling to keep up with the frantic pace of evacuation, and entire communities left behind in the rush to escape. In Cambodia alone, more than 37,000 people have been forced to leave their villages, seeking refuge wherever they can find it. On the Thai side, the numbers are even higher. Over 130,000 people have fled their homes, many of them crowding into makeshift shelters or staying with relatives in safer areas. The roads leading away from the border are choked with traffic as families pile into cars, trucks, and even carts pulled by hand. Refugee camps have sprung up almost overnight, filled with people who have lost everything but their determination to survive. The scenes inside these shelters are a mix of relief and anxiety, relief at having escaped the immediate danger, and anxiety about what the future holds. The impact on daily life is devastating. Schools that once rang with the laughter of children now stand silent, their gates locked and playgrounds deserted. Hospitals, already stretched thin, have been forced to close their doors, leaving the sick and injured with nowhere to turn. Aid workers are doing their best to reach those in need, but the sheer scale of the crisis and the ongoing violence makes their job almost impossible. Supplies of food, water, and medicine are running dangerously low, and many families are surviving on little more than hope. The sense of loss is overwhelming as people grapple with the reality that their lives may never return to normal. Imagine being a child in this situation. One day you're playing with friends, the next you're huddled in a crowded shelter, unsure if you'll ever see your home again. Or think about the parents, forced to make impossible choices about what to take and what to leave behind. For the elderly, the journey is especially hard, as they struggle to keep up with the younger members of their families. The trauma of displacement is something that will linger long after the fighting stops. How did it come to this? The current wave of violence was triggered by a landmine explosion that wounded several soldiers near the border. What might have been a tragic but isolated incident quickly escalated into a full-blown conflict, as both sides accused each other of aggression and responded with force. The border region is now heavily militarized, with soldiers on high alert and landmines posing a constant threat to anyone who ventures too close. The fear of further attacks hangs over the area like a dark cloud, and the risk of more casualties grows with each passing day. The political rhetoric is heating up, with both governments blaming each other for the violence. Officials from Cambodia and Thailand have taken to the airwaves, accusing their rivals of starting the conflict and even using civilians as human shields. The war of words is making it even harder to find a peaceful solution, as each side digs in and refuses to back down. Meanwhile, ordinary people are caught in the middle, their lives turned upside down by decisions made far from the front lines. The situation is further complicated by the presence of powerful weapons and the threat of escalation. Reports of cluster munitions being used have drawn condemnation from human rights groups, who warn that these weapons pose a grave danger to civilians long after the fighting ends. The use of such indiscriminate weapons is a stark reminder of the brutality of modern warfare and the urgent need for restraint on all sides. The threat of cluster munitions is not just theoretical, it's a daily reality for those living near the border. Unexploded ordnance litters the landscape, turning fields and villages into deadly minefields. Human rights activists have staged protests demanding an immediate halt to the use of these weapons and calling for accountability for those responsible. The destruction left behind by cluster bombs is plain to see. Homes reduced to rubble, families torn apart, and entire communities living in fear of the next explosion. The international community is watching closely, with organizations like ASEAN and the United Nations urging both sides to step back from the brink. Emergency meetings have been called and diplomats are working around the clock to broker a ceasefire. Humanitarian agencies are mobilizing resources, but the scale of the crisis is overwhelming. The message from the world is clear: the violence must stop and innocent lives must be protected. But for those on the ground, help can't come soon enough. The border region is a patchwork of makeshift camps, crowded shelters, and desperate families waiting for news. Aid workers are doing their best to provide food, water, and medical care, but the needs are immense. Every day brings new challenges, as more people arrive seeking safety, and the fighting shows no sign of ending. For those trapped in the middle, peace feels like a distant dream. Families huddle together in flimsy tents, listening for the sounds of gunfire and wondering if it's safe to venture outside. Children ask when they'll be able to go home, but parents have no answers. The uncertainty is crushing, and the psychological toll is mounting with each passing day. The border has become a no man's land, a place where hope is in short supply and fear is a constant companion. The human cost of this conflict is impossible to ignore. As the world watches, it's the families forced from their homes who are paying the highest price. Many have lost everything: their homes, their livelihoods, and their sense of security. Some may never return to the villages they once called home, while others face an uncertain future in crowded refugee camps. The trauma of displacement will linger long after the headlines fade, leaving scars that may never fully heal. It's easy to feel helpless in the face of such overwhelming tragedy, but there are things we can do. Raising awareness, supporting humanitarian organizations, and urging our leaders to push for peace are all steps we can take to make a difference. The people of the Cambodia-Thailand border region deserve our attention, our compassion, and our support. As diplomats gather for peace talks and leaders engage in tense negotiations, the world holds its breath. The stakes could not be higher. Every day that the fighting continues, more lives are shattered, more families are displaced, and the hope for a peaceful resolution grows dimmer. But there is still a chance for dialogue, for compromise, and for a return to peace. Let's hope that those in power choose the path of dialogue over disaster, before even more lives are lost, and before the wounds of this conflict become too deep to heal. The people of the Cambodia-Thailand border are counting on it.